She had to wake me up at 7 in the morning to tell me that I didn't get the job. And then on November 10th, I'm going to have my coding interview and then my design interview. Imagine your dream company, a place you've wanted to work since junior year of college. In fact, they give you a verbal offer, they send you a list of benefits so you can get even more excited, and then they ghost you. All right, the company we are talking about today is Asana. Asana was a dream company for me. My name is Namanh. I went to Rice, studied CS, interned at a bunch of places, and most recently it was at a startup called Bolt in San Francisco. I was laid off or quit, and there's a whole story you can check out, and I've been compiling a recruiting series because the market is kind of down and it's really hard to get a job. And well, this is the story of a company I really wanted, an offer they gave me, and then took it away at the very last minute. So stay tuned, it gets kind of crazy, maybe borderline illegal, but I don't have any money, so I can't really sue anybody. Now, it's October-ish. I have been out of a job for a couple months. Severance is up. Now, it's kind of funny. There's a friend of mine in college. I say friend, acquaintance, stranger, not really a friend. In fact, this is kind of shameless because the only conversation we've ever had is, can you refer me to your company? And he's been at Asana for an insanely long time. So back in college, I literally asked him for an intern referral, for a new grad referral. And then, what do you know? I messaged him out of the blue and was like, hey, I'd love to be at Asana again. Do you think you could refer me? He didn't respond for a day, and I don't know if I just got antsy, so I actually ended up applying online before even waiting to hear back from him, because I assumed if I applied online, he could maybe connect the application to his referral, but they actually got back to me. One of the few times a company actually gets back to me. And this is actually a little crazy because I talked to a couple friends recently and they've been applying to all the big AI companies like Anthropic and OpenAI, and they've actually been getting interviews. So I guess good to know humans are actually reading the applications, or maybe the market is back up now. But there was a time when if you applied online, you might just never hear back. And it's kind of like dating with girls. You'd rather them just tell you they're not interested than ghost you. But trust me, these tech companies won't even get back to you. So anyway, I get the first round interview, which is, classic, a recruiter call. We hop on the call. She's super sweet. And so I tell her I'm really excited. I've been out of a job for a bit and I'm looking for a home for the next couple of years. And she said, that sounds great. Let's move in the process. And so I get the first round interview, and you can actually look this up on Glassdoor. So none of this is that confidential, but Asana is one of those few companies that if you're ever going to interview with them, just check out Glassdoor. The interview is basically exactly what I saw on there. The questions, the format, everything. So I ended up getting a question I actually saw on Glassdoor. Now it was really interesting though, because I obviously got the trick very quickly, but they didn't want me to actually code it down. My interviewer, I don't remember if we were using CoderPad or Google Doc, but you can actually compile the code. So you could write some pseudocode, and I think he made me write out the format of what I wanted to do, but never did he ask me to actually run it. So it didn't really matter if it was correct. Instead, he started asking me some very interesting questions like, hey, Namanh, you mentioned the word priority queue or heap. How would you actually implement it in the language of your choice? And I wanted to use Python, and I knew there was like heap queue and all these classes, but he was like, no, we're not gonna do any of that. Let's say we wanna write a class. How would you design a priority queue? Or would it be a min heap? Would it be a max heap? Could you use either? What would you change? And these are things that, maybe if you've done the lead code question and thought about it more and looked at the solutions, you might know the extensibility of the solution, but I kind of just knew if you hear top K, it's heap. Say heap, you know what the runtime is, and you're going to be good. I think I did the same thing. I kind of said it out loud, and I was a little confused, and he was like, no, let's actually break it down. Is it K log N or is it N log K? And I was like, God damn, I actually got to think. So it became kind of a fun experiment. Now, the interesting thing with the Asana interview is that you have two parts in that first screen. You have this coding problem and you have a design problem, but it's not like system design. It's like coding design. It was something like design a jigsaw piece, or design 2048, the game, or design a chess class or something like that, or tic-tac-toe, where the idea is this whole OOP, object-oriented programming principles. Again, very collaborative, thinking about things that I think is way more fun because that's the actual work you're going to be doing. Like, think about how would you actually design chess. You have a board, you have some pieces, each piece has an amount it can move, all these kind of interesting things. And so I think that is way more fun than doing some like random leak code problem. So anyway, I finished the interview. I'm feeling pretty good, but just like all the girls in my life, they ghost me. And I mean, honest, I'm not being dramatic. You're probably like, hey, Namanh, you didn't hear back for 2 days. No, literally crickets. And after you do really well in an interview, I don't want to hear crickets. I want to hear something, right? And so I follow up and I'm like, hey, I haven't heard back. And they finally get back to me, essentially. And she's like, hey, you did really well. We'd love to move you forward. And it's always really funny. You hear nothing back. And then as soon as I email them, 1 hour later, I get an email that's like, hey, thanks for checking in. Actually, everything went well. And it's like, there's no way you just got the feedback an hour after I messaged you. So were you waiting for something? Was I at the bottom of your list? In your own little project management system? Was I don't know. Anyway, I get the onsite. And I know that the role is hybrid. It's actually one of the things I highlighted. I want to be in New York because I want to go back to the office. And also, I've said this, the food is so good. Like literally just look up Asana food, look up Dropbox food back in the day. I want to eat good, and I want to send my mom pictures of my food because it's going to make her happy that her boy is eating well. So they finally get back to me about the on-site, and it's scheduled over 2 days, which is a little annoying because there's a gap between them. November 7th and then November 10th. November 7th, I'm going to have my systems interview and then my hiring manager interview. And then on November 10th, I'm going to have my coding interview, which I'm going to talk about, and then my design interview before like a little wrap up with the recruiter. So now I'm boarding to the World Trade Center. Sick. Like I should have taken a video when I was there. Literally 360 views of the city because they own the whole floor. So you could see Brooklyn or the rest of downtown Manhattan. I mean, World Trade Center is in Financial District, FiDi. Or if you're on the other side, you could see all of Manhattan that way in the world. One of the most iconic buildings. Like that's a flex. The people at the reception see me and they're like, hey, like, can I help you? And I'm like, yeah, I'm here for an interview with Asana. They take my ID, they check me in. And they're like, 1 second, like what's that in your hand? And I had, let me go get it. All right. So, can you see me? This is my board. I don't know if you've ever seen B-roll of it. I love this thing. It's how I get around the city. So I walk into the World Trade Center with my board. I'm like, yep, they take my ID, everything. And they're like, what's this? And I'm like, oh, it's a longboard. And people ask me about it. They're like, is it a boosted board? And I'm like, I always joke, nah, blood, sweat, and tears. And so I'm like, yeah, it's how I get around the city. And they're like, you can't take that up. I was like, excuse me? Like, what do you mean I can't take my board up? So it's the whole reason I have it. So I don't have to like lock it anywhere. It's in my hand. There's like part of my body essentially. It's like, and they're like, sorry, we can't have objects in the regular elevators. And I was like, what? So they make me take the service elevator. Like, can you imagine? Like it's maybe 15 minutes before my interview starts and I'm taking the service elevator to the 48th floor. It opens and it's like jank. It's like literally a garbage disposal there. The janitor's like moving some big ass thing. It looks hella weird in the hallways. And I'm like basically like Scooby-Doo trying to open every door, trying to figure out which one goes to the actual office or some hallway which will lead me to the office. Anyway, so I finally find a door and I open it and guess what? It leads to directly inside the office. I'm not talking about the reception. I'm talking about like one of the stairwell accesses. So imagine I just like walk in and I'm just in an office now. No badge, no security, obviously not where I'm supposed to be. And someone sees me obviously looking confused and they're like, can I help you? And I'm like, I'm here for an interview. And they're like, let me take you to the reception. So I go to the reception, I sit down, my recruiter comes out, she greets me, really nice. And then I enter my first interview of the day where they were asking me what features I would think about and think about the user. And I had to literally be like, one of our users might be Kathy and this is what she might want. Another one might be Bob and this is what he might want. And so we come up with functional requirements. We figure out how we're going to test success, engagement, retention. And then we actually technically build the thing. And I say, buzzwords like cash and whatever. And it just went really well. I had a really good time. I was in an office again using an actual whiteboard with a marker. It just felt like pre-COVID days and somewhere that I might actually want to end up. And so I thought I had a great chat. So we finished that interview and I'm feeling really good. Then the hiring manager comes in and Asana is a little strange where the hiring manager is just a hiring manager. It might not be one, so it might not be my hiring manager, but just a hiring manager. And this guy was so nice. Typed insanely fast. Like, when you're doing an interview and they're just, like I would like finish saying something and he'd be like, A little nerve-wracking that he was I think he typed every single word that came out of my mouth. But anyway, you know me again. I'm a sweet talker, just like in the recruiter call. Like I can hype myself up. So I talked about all the cool stuff I made at Bolt, the private label credit card integration, Klarna, building a proxy for our database during peak Black Friday season. Like, really, I'm a beast. And then I go home and I don't remember if she called me or like while I was walking out, she gave me some indication where she's like, yeah, I've heard, I just kind of touch base with the two recruiters. Probably when they were leaving, they're like, hey, how do you do? Like kind of just pulse check. And they were like, yeah, good. Looking good. Like you're going into day 2, kind of good. So it's on you to mess this up. Like right now, we're kind of excited to see you do some more. So the next 2 are virtual. So that one starts off with a coding interview, which is kind of interesting where a person hops on and explains what we're going to be building. And then they hop off and I have 90 minutes to just do it myself. So the whole interview is 2 hours. So like the first 5-10 minutes is intro and introducing the problem and the prompt and everything and asking if I have any questions and going through some examples and use cases and what they're looking for. And then that person just leaves and I cannot ask them any more questions. So if I have any assumptions, I have to just write them down, document them for the next 90 minutes and actually code up a solution. And then they come back and you kind of present it to them. To this interview, I would spend less time actually coding every single edge case and whatever, and more time refactoring my code and breaking up into different classes and all that. And I didn't do all of that, but I did a sufficient job and everything worked. And every time she asked me another question and like, can you try this or try that? My code worked. And then the last interview was a design interview with Charles. And again, this is not design like system design. That we'd already did. That was like the one with Joe, kind of the PME, like thinking about the broader system and like a database and whatever and what you might want to store. So again, like the vibe of design chess or Tetris or Connect 4, right? Like design a game, think about the pieces, how are they going to move? So we kind of worked on our little pieces, talked a little bit, whatever. And at the end, they had a GUI so I could actually hook up my chess backend class and see some of this stuff happen. So anyway, I finished all this. I once again tell my recruiter I had a great time, everything's good. And she's like, pulse check, everything looks good. Cool. So the weekend passes. I wait until November 14th. So that's a couple days, might've been that Monday or Tuesday. And I was like, hey, hope you had a great weekend. Just wanted to check in to see if you have any updates. She responds the same day and she's like, hey, thank you for checking in. We debriefed and we do have an update. She hops on the call and she's like, the team loved you. Like you passed, you did great, and all we have to do now is find a home for you, a team. She emails me right after that call and she's like, hey, thanks for hopping on the phone with me again. As mentioned, here's a brief 1-pager of our benefits. Let me know if you have any questions after reviewing. It's like with the Asana watermark and letterhead, and I'm excited. Like it feels more real. Smartly, she doesn't actually send me any sort of offer thing. And on the phone, I think she asked me for reference checks, so I send her back an email with some references, and she's like, hey, I'm gonna check with them and whatnot. I'm hoping I'm going to have information around teams by midday tomorrow. So this is like literally the next day. Now, before I tell you what happens on this call, and you probably already know since I kind of gave it away, but I'm going to tell you exactly what she said, and it's kind of messed up. I want to tell you about a past trauma when it comes to calling me instead of texting or emailing me. So back in college, I interviewed at this company called Palantir. Their stock is doing insane. I should have bought some. And this is back when on-sites were literally on site. So I did the phone screen and then I flew out to Washington, D.C. because they do a bunch of government contracting work. I interviewed in person and then I came back to college and the recruiter reached out and she was like, hey, I have some feedback. Would love to hop on a call. I wake up 6:45, go brush my teeth, put some water on my face to just feel like a human. And dead ass, she's like, I'm so sorry you didn't pass the onsite. Could have been a text, could have been an email. Nope. She had to wake me up at 7 in the morning to tell me with the voice that I didn't get the job. So I hop on the call and she says, I'm sorry we couldn't find a team for you. What do you mean? Like I passed the interview, there's a bunch of teams at Asana, and I know for a fact there's a team with this opening because I applied online to that opening and I went through the whole process, and if you took someone else or filled it, then you wouldn't have made me continue interviewing. But she's like, we just don't have a spot for you. And I was like, did you fill it with someone else? She's like, no, actually that role is still open. You just can't come in at that role. I'm like, what do you mean? I applied for software engineer 2, L4. She's like, yeah, but unfortunately you actually aced your interviews. And so you are not an L4. You're actually an L5. You're a senior engineer. Wait a second. Let me get this straight. I applied for a lower position. I did better. You didn't have to tell me I did better. You could just give me the job. In fact, I wouldn't have known. I would have just taken the pay and the equity and the role because that's what I applied to. And secretly, you would have just been getting a senior level candidate because I guess I aced the interviews. But instead, you're telling me I did better and then not giving me the job? So here's my hunch. Someone else passed the onsite and accepted before, or they gave them a lower salary and they accepted something. Like, I don't think that place was open anymore, and then they just made up something that I was too good. I mean, I can't even imagine a company saying, you're too good so we can't take you. Like, I mean, so aggravating. Anyway, I still blame them. This is their fault. Sorry, Asana. I mean, I love you, but I also kind of hate you. The recruiting series, I think, is done. Maybe more interviews I'll tell you about when they come if I feel like it. But hopefully the next update will just be me getting a job. That'd be kind of sick, right? So stay tuned. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon.